Hello everyone. Welcome to Fluent English Journey. I am really glad to have you here. Don't forget to subscribe so you can get daily tips to improve your English. Today, we are going to talk about how to use simple daily sentences in your conversations. These sentences may seem small, but they are very powerful. Using them the right way can make you sound more natural, confident, and fluent in English. It was a cold December evening, the kind of evening where the wind feels soft and the world becomes quiet, as if everything is waiting for something magical to happen. I slowly walked down a small street covered in tiny golden lights, and as I walked, I could hear the soft crunch of snow under my shoes. It felt peaceful. It felt warm, even though the air was cold. And as I looked around, something inside me whispered, "Christmas is coming." But tonight, something felt different. Something felt special. Maybe it was the silent street. Maybe it was the warm lights in every window. Or maybe something was about to happen that would change the way I see Christmas forever. I stopped for a moment and looked up at the sky. The clouds moved slowly, almost like they were dancing. I took a deep breath and felt the cold air fill my lungs. This was the kind of night you only see in Christmas movies, but now I was inside it, living the moment, feeling every small detail. I continued walking, and as I passed a small bakery, the smell of warm bread and sweet cinnamon touched my nose. It made me smile. Christmas has a special way of doing that, making simple things feel magical. I didn't know it yet, but this simple walk was the beginning of a story that would teach me something about giving, about kindness, and about the power of simple English words spoken from the heart. In the distance, I saw a small Christmas tree standing outside a shop. It was not big, not shiny, not perfect. But it had something beautiful about it. Maybe it was the way the lights twinkled softly. Maybe it was the way the wind made the little bells ring. Or maybe it was just the feeling that someone had placed it there with love. I stepped closer, and the moment I did, something unexpected happened. A small voice behind me said, "Do you like our tree?" I turned around slowly. There stood a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, wearing a bright red scarf and holding a cup of warm chocolate. Her eyes were big, curious, full of life. I smiled gently and said, "Yes, I like it very much. It's simple, but very beautiful." She laughed softly and said, "That's what my grandma says too." Her voice carried a kind of warmth that made the cold street feel less cold. I looked around and asked, "Is this your shop?" The little girl nodded proudly and said, "Yes. My grandma's shop. She makes Christmas ornaments. Do you want to see inside?" I hesitated. I didn't know her. She didn't know me. But something about her felt honest, safe, and inviting. So I nodded. "Yes," I said softly, "I would like that." She opened the door, and a small bell above it made a cheerful ring. Inside, the shop was warm, bright, and full of colorful decorations. There were handmade stars, tiny angels, snowmen with little hats, and soft lights everywhere. It looked like a small Christmas world made of love and memories. The little girl walked in front of me and said, "Grandma, we have a visitor." A kind-looking old woman stepped out from behind a table. She had white hair, glasses hanging from a small chain, and a smile that felt like a warm blanket. "Hello," she said gently, "welcome to our little shop." Her voice was slow, soft, and perfect for English learners. I introduced myself, and she nodded kindly. "Feel at home," she said. "Here, everything is made with love." I walked around the shop, touching the small ornaments gently. Everything here was handmade. Every small detail felt personal. I felt like I was walking inside someone's memories, someone's love, someone's heart. And then the grandmother said something that made me stop. She said, "Christmas is not about big gifts. It is about small moments. Moments like this." I looked at her, confused yet curious. "Small moments?" I asked. She nodded. "Yes. Small moments that touch your heart. Small moments that help you feel alive. She picked up a small wooden star and placed it in my hand. This star, she said, is made from old wood from my childhood home. Every year, I make one new star from the same wood. It reminds me that love never ends. It just changes shape. Her words stayed in my mind. In that quiet little shop, surrounded by soft lights and handmade dreams, something inside me began to shift. Christmas is not about big parties, expensive gifts, or loud celebrations. Maybe Christmas is about noticing the small, simple things. The things we usually forget. The moments we usually ignore. The love we carry but don't always show. The little girl walked up to me again. "Do you want to hear a Christmas story?" she asked. I smiled. "Yes," I said. "Tell me your story." She sat down on a small chair and began speaking slowly, clearly, like she wanted me to understand every word. She said, "Last year, we had a very quiet Christmas. My mom was sick and we could not go outside. But my grandma made this shop full of lights, warm chocolate, and soft music. She told me that even when the world is hard, Christmas can still find you if you let it." As she spoke, her eyes shined. Not with sadness, but with hope. "My mom is better now," she added softly. "And this year, I want to make Christmas special for someone. Maybe for many people." Her words were simple, but they were big in meaning. Then she looked at me and said something I would never forget. "Maybe tonight, Christmas found you too." I felt a strange warmth in my chest. Yes, maybe she was right. Maybe Christmas had found me on this quiet street, in this small shop, through these simple English words spoken by a little girl and her grandmother. Sometimes we don't choose special moments. Sometimes they choose us. The grandmother smiled and placed a small ornament in my hand. It was a tiny wooden heart. "Take this," she said, "as a gift. A Christmas gift. Free." I shook my head. "No, I can't take it for free." But she touched my hand gently and said, "Christmas gifts are not bought. They are given." I looked down at the small heart. Simple, soft, handmade. And suddenly, I understood something. Christmas is about giving something from the heart, not something from the pocket. I thanked her quietly, feeling a little emotional. The girl walked with me to the door. Before I stepped outside, she said, "Come back on Christmas Eve. Something special will happen." I nodded, unsure but curious. Outside, the street looked a little brighter than before. Or maybe it was me who felt lighter. Maybe kindness has a way of lighting the world around you. As I walked home, the wooden heart warm in my hand, I felt something I had not felt in a long time: hope. Christmas hope. The kind that fills you slowly. The kind that grows quietly. The kind that begins with small moments. And this was only the beginning. The next morning, the world looked different. Not because something huge happened, but because my heart felt a little softer, a little lighter, a little more open. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was the small wooden heart on my table. I had placed it there the night before, thinking I would move it later. But now, in the morning light, it looked warm, old, and full of stories. I picked it up, held it gently in my hand, and whispered to myself, "Why does something so small feel so special?" I walked to the window and pulled the curtain slightly. Snow was falling again, slowly, softly, like little white feathers dancing in the air. People walked on the street below, wrapped in winter coats and scarves. Some walked fast, some slow, some talked to each other, and some walked alone. But everyone seemed to carry a little bit of Christmas energy with them. Everything felt alive. Everything felt gentle. Everything felt possible. I made myself a warm drink and sat near the window, thinking about the grandmother and the little girl from last night. Their shop had felt like a small island of kindness in the middle of a cold world. I remembered the girl's words, Come back on Christmas Eve. Something special will happen. I didn't understand what that meant, but I felt drawn to the idea. Maybe Christmas is full of small mysteries, I thought. Maybe each mystery is waiting for someone to notice it. As I sipped my drink slowly, I thought about my own Christmas memories. Some happy, some sad, some lonely, some warm. But one memory stayed with me, a memory from my childhood. I remembered how my mother would place a single candle on the table every Christmas Eve and say, "This light is for hope." It didn't matter if we had gifts or not. It didn't matter if the world was busy or quiet. That single candle always made me feel safe. It reminded me that even when life feels dark, there is always a small light somewhere. Maybe last night was my candle for this year. Later that day, I decided to take a walk again. The streets were busier. Children were laughing and throwing snowballs. Families were buying decorations. Small market stalls were selling hot drinks and sweet cookies. A man dressed as Santa Claus was waving at people and ringing a small bell. Everything looked cheerful. But inside me, something deeper was happening. I was beginning to see Christmas not as a big celebration, but as a gentle feeling. As I walked, I noticed an old man sitting on a bench. He was wearing a long brown coat and holding a small bag of bird food. Birds circled around him, landing softly at his feet. Every few seconds, he threw a little food, and the birds hopped closer. He smiled quietly, as if this simple moment was enough to make his day special. I sat down on the other side of the bench. He looked at me, gave a slow nod, and continued feeding the birds. After a moment, he said, "Beautiful, isn't it?" His voice was calm and warm, like someone who has lived a long, thoughtful life. I nodded. "Yes," I said, "it is beautiful. Very peaceful." He threw a few more crumbs and said, "People always think Christmas is about big things. Big dinners, big parties, big gifts. But Christmas is actually about small things. Things like this. Moments that remind us to slow down." His words reminded me of the grandmother from last night. "Do you always come here?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Every morning. For the last 10 years. My wife loved feeding birds. When she passed away, I continued the tradition. It makes me feel close to her." There was a silence, a soft, meaningful silence. Then he added, "Christmas is hard for many people. But it also has a way of healing old memories. Not all at once, but slowly. Like snow falling. One small piece at a time." I felt something in my chest, a kind of gentle ache. "That's beautiful," I said softly. The man smiled. "Beauty is simple. People just forget to look." He stood up slowly, waved lightly at me, and walked away, leaving a soft cloud of snow behind him. I stayed on the bench for a few more minutes, thinking about everything I had heard. Christmas was talking to me, not with loud music or bright lights, but through small moments, small people, small words. And somehow, those small things felt bigger than anything else. In the afternoon, I visited a small bookstore. The door made a light bell sound again, that same warm, Christmas-like sound. Inside, the smell of old paper and clean wooden shelves made me feel calm. I walked between the rows, touching the books gently. A young woman working there smiled at me. "Looking for something special?" she asked kindly. I shook my head softly. "Not really. Maybe just something simple for Christmas." She nodded thoughtfully and said, "Sometimes the best Christmas gifts are not things we buy. Sometimes they are memories we create." Again, the same lesson. What was happening? Was the whole world trying to tell me the same thing? Before leaving, I bought a small notebook. Not expensive. Not fancy. Just simple. A place to write Christmas thoughts, maybe. Or maybe a place to write about people I met. Or maybe it was something that would make sense later. As I walked home, I passed the same street from last night. I couldn't help but slow down as I reached the little shop. The lights were on. The Christmas tree outside was glowing softly. And inside, I saw the grandmother working at her table, shaping a small ornament with gentle hands. I didn't enter. Not yet. But I stood outside for a moment, watching her. There was something beautiful about the way she worked. Slow, careful, full of love. I could see why her decorations felt special. They carried a piece of her heart. Later that evening, I sat at my table with the wooden heart in front of me and the empty notebook beside it. The night outside was quiet. Snow was still falling. And as I looked at the heart, I realized something important, something that made my chest feel warm. Christmas is not a date, not a decoration, not a big celebration. Christmas is a feeling. The feeling of being seen. The feeling of being remembered. The feeling of being connected. The feeling of being human. And maybe the feeling of being home. Even if home is not a place, but a moment. I opened the notebook and wrote one simple sentence on the first page. This year, I will let Christmas find me. And as I wrote it, I felt like I was making a promise, not to someone else, but to myself. A Christmas promise. And the story was just beginning. The next day arrived with a soft, glowing light that filled my room gently, almost like someone had opened a quiet door to a peaceful world. I woke up slowly, listening to the silence. Sometimes silence can feel empty, but today it felt full of possibility, full of warmth, full of something I could not name. When I stood near the window, the first thing I saw was the snow. It covered everything like a clean, white blanket. The rooftops, the cars, the trees, all covered in soft snow. It looked like the world had been reset overnight. It looked pure, calm, ready. I held the small wooden heart the grandmother had given me and placed it carefully inside my coat pocket. I didn't know why, but it felt like something I needed to bring with me today. Like a small guide. Like a quiet friend. When I stepped outside, the cold air touched my face with a sharp but friendly kiss. I started walking, my shoes making soft crunching sounds in the snow. Each step felt slow and thoughtful. It was the kind of morning where you don't rush. You don't hurry. You just walk and let your heart think. As I walked down the snowy street, I noticed something unusual. A young boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, was standing near a small bridge, holding a broken sled in his hands. He looked frustrated and a little sad. I walked closer and asked softly, "Are you okay?" He looked up at me with big dark eyes and said, "My sled broke. I wanted to slide down the hill with my friends, but now I can't." He showed me the wooden sled. One side of it was cracked. Not completely broken, but it needed fixing. I looked at it carefully and said, "Maybe we can fix it together." His face brightened immediately. "Really? You would help me?" I nodded. "Sure. Let's try." We sat near the side of the bridge. The wind was cold, but the small moment felt warm. I held the pieces together while the boy looked for something to tie them. He found a strong piece of rope inside his pocket. He said he always carried rope, just in case, which made me smile. Slowly and carefully, we wrapped the rope around the broken area. We pulled it tight, then tighter. And little by little, the sled felt stronger again. When we finished, the boy pushed the sled gently on the snow. It stayed firm. It didn't break. He looked at me with a huge smile, the kind of smile that shines brighter than Christmas lights. "Thank you," he said loudly. "Now I can play with my friends." I stood up and smiled back. "Just promise me to be careful on the hill." He nodded happily, then shouted, "I will." "Merry Christmas," and ran toward the hill, his sled sliding behind him like a loyal friend. As I watched him run, I realized something simple but powerful. Kindness is one of the easiest gifts to give, yet it always makes the biggest difference. I continued walking, feeling a warm light inside me. Maybe this is what Christmas does. It opens your eyes to moments where you can help someone without even planning to. Moments that make you feel connected to strangers. Moments that remind you that we all share the same world, the same snow, the same sky. A little later, I came across a small park. In the middle of the park was a beautiful pine tree decorated with colorful ribbons. Nearby, a woman was putting small ornaments on the branches. She looked tired, but she also looked peaceful. I walked closer and said kindly, "Your tree looks beautiful." She turned and gave me a gentle smile. "Thank you. It's for the community. Every year we decorate it together. But this year, many people are busy, so I'm doing most of it alone." I watched her for a moment. Her hands were cold and slightly red from the cold air, but she continued working carefully, placing each ornament as if it mattered, as if each small decoration was important. Without thinking too much, I asked, "Would you like some help?" She looked surprised, then grateful. "Yes, that would be very nice." So, for the next 20 minutes, we decorated the tree together. She handed me small ornaments, stars, bells, little snowflakes made of silver paper. I placed them gently on higher branches while she decorated the lower ones. We didn't talk much, but the silence between us felt warm and friendly. Like we were sharing a simple moment that meant more than words. After we finished, we stepped back and looked at the tree. It looked bright, soft, and full of love. The woman sighed happily and said, "Christmas feels different when people help each other." I nodded. "Yes, it really does." Before I left, she said, "Thank you. You didn't have to help, but you did. That means something." And I understood exactly what she meant. As I walked again, I noticed that the day was slowly getting darker. The sun was fading behind gray clouds, turning the sky into a soft blue-gray blanket. I walked toward the small river at the edge of town. The water moved slowly, and the snow around it looked untouched, like a clean canvas. While I stood there watching the river, I saw a woman struggling with her grocery bags. One of the bags tore open, and apples rolled into the snow. Without thinking, I hurried over. "Let me help you," I said softly. She looked tired and embarrassed. "Oh no. I'm so clumsy," she whispered. I shook my head gently. "It happens to all of us." I helped her pick up the apples, brushing off the snow. Then I tied the broken bag using a small knot. She looked at me and said, "You're very kind." "Thank you." I shrugged with a small smile. "It's nothing." But she shook her head. "No. It is something. Kindness is always something." Her words stayed in my heart. Again. The same lesson. The same message. Christmas is not about big things. It is about small kindnesses that slowly build a warm world. As the evening settled in, the street lights turned on, glowing softly through the cold air. I made my way back to the quiet street where the grandmother's shop was. I didn't go inside, not yet. But I stopped in front of the small tree again. Tonight, it looked even more magical. The lights twinkled like tiny stars. The bells made little sounds when the wind passed through. And the little wooden heart in my pocket felt warm against my chest. I stood there for a long moment, wondering why this small shop felt so important to me. Maybe because it represented something I had been missing: gentleness, warmth, care, human connection. And maybe Christmas was slowly guiding me back to those things. Before I left the street, I saw someone coming out of the shop, the little girl. She stepped outside, looked up at the sky, and let the snow touch her face. Then she saw me. "You came back," she said with a happy voice. I nodded softly. "Yes. I came for a walk. Anne, I think Christmas is teaching me something." She smiled in a wise way for a child. "Christmas teaches everyone differently," she said. "It always knows what you need." I didn't understand fully, but I felt the truth in her words. She waved gently and went back inside. As I walked home again, the the snow falling quietly around me, I realized something deep and simple. Maybe Christmas is not trying to make our lives perfect. Maybe it is trying to make our hearts open. Open to kindness. Open to people. Open to new moments. Open to simple magic. And I felt ready for whatever Christmas wanted to show me next. The next morning began quietly. Not loud, not dramatic, not exciting, just soft and peaceful, the way winter mornings often are. When I opened my eyes, I didn't feel rushed. Instead, I felt calm, like the world wanted me to slow down and breathe deeply. I stepped out of bed, walked to the window, and opened the curtain gently. The snow outside was shining in the early light. It looked like someone had sprinkled small diamonds all over the ground. Everything was still, silent, and beautiful. I made myself a simple breakfast, warm tea and toast, and sat by the window watching the world move slowly. A few people walked on the street below, wrapped in heavy coats and scarves. Their breath made little clouds in the cold air. I wondered where they were going. Maybe to work. Maybe to visit family. Maybe to buy something special for Christmas. Everyone had their own story, their own journey. And somehow, all these different journeys touched each other in small ways. When I finished my tea, I put on my coat, scarf, and gloves. I placed the little wooden heart in my pocket again. It felt like a good luck charm now, or maybe a reminder of kindness. Then I stepped outside. The cold air greeted me with a fresh, sharp feeling, but it also felt clean and energizing. My first step into the snow left a perfect footprint, and it made me smile. Every day is like fresh snow, I thought, untouched, ready for new footprints, new moments, new memories. Today, I decided to explore a different part of town. I walked slowly, watching people decorate their windows with colorful lights. Some houses had small wreaths on the door. Others had candles glowing gently inside. The whole town was preparing for Christmas in its own quiet way. After some time, I reached a small, narrow street I had never seen before. It was quieter than the others. There were no shops, no cars, no children playing. Just a long line of old houses with warm windows. Something about this street felt peaceful. Maybe even magical. I kept walking until I saw something that made me stop. In one of the windows, there was a warm yellow light, not bright, not strong, just warm. And in front of that light sat an old man in a wooden chair, reading a book. He had white hair, soft wrinkles, and glasses resting on his nose. He looked peaceful, almost like a painting in a Christmas story. Something about that image touched my heart deeply. I stood there for a moment longer, watching the scene quietly. The old man didn't know I was there, but he didn't need to know. The moment was meaningful simply because it existed. A warm light. An old book. A quiet man. A peaceful room. It was a simple picture, yet it made me feel something strong, a feeling of comfort, maybe. Or nostalgia. Or safety. I continued walking, but the picture stayed in my mind. That simple light in the window made me think about how every person carries a little light inside them, a light of memories, stories, dreams, and kindness. And sometimes, without knowing it, they share that light with the world. After a short walk, I reached the small bakery I had passed a few days before, the one with the warm smell of bread and cinnamon. Today, the door was open and warm air floated out gently, carrying a sweet smell that made me smile. I decided to go inside. Inside the bakery, the ovens were running, and the soft sound of Christmas music played in the background. A young woman behind the counter smiled politely and said, "Good morning. What would you like?" Her voice was friendly and clear, perfect for English listening practice. I looked at the pastries, but before choosing, I noticed something beautiful. Behind the counter, next to the cash register, someone had placed a small note that read, "If you are cold, if you are tired, if you are lonely, come inside. Warmth is free." The moment I read those words, something warm moved inside my chest. The world needs more messages like that, I thought. Messages that remind people they are not alone. Messages that remind them that kindness is still alive. I ordered a small cinnamon roll, and while the woman prepared it, I asked who wrote the sign. She smiled shyly. "My father," she said. "He believes Christmas is for everyone, not just for people with money. So if someone comes in and can't pay, he gives them something warm anyway." I felt a deep respect for her father. "That's very kind," I said softly. She nodded. "He says kindness is like bread. You give it, and it always comes back to you in a good way." I took my cinnamon roll and sat at a small table by the window. Outside, the snow fell slowly, almost in slow motion. People walked by with shopping bags, children laughed as they tried to catch snowflakes, and the world looked soft, gentle, alive. As I ate, a man came in quietly. His clothes were old, his hair messy, and he looked cold. The young woman behind the counter didn't ask him anything. She just smiled and said softly, "Would you like something warm?" The man nodded, almost shyly, and she handed him a warm cup of soup without asking for money. He whispered, "Thank you," in a small voice and sat down near the heater. I watched this little moment, feeling something grow inside me. A kind of respect, a kind of sadness, a kind of hope. Christmas is full of moments like this, moments where small kindness becomes something big. When I finished my cinnamon roll, I thanked the woman and stepped back outside. The air was colder now, but I felt warmer. I continued walking, following the snow-covered street until I reached a small frozen pond. Children were skating on it, holding hands, laughing loudly, falling gently into the snow and getting up again. There was innocence in their laughter. Pure joy. They didn't care about gifts or decorations. They cared about fun, play, and the joy of the moment. I sat on a small bench and watched them. A little boy skated too fast and fell. For a second, he looked upset. But then his friend offered a hand, pulled him up, and they both laughed loudly. That simple act, falling and being helped, looked like life itself. Christmas teaches us that even when we fall, someone can lift us up. A friend, a stranger, a memory, a moment. As the afternoon slowly passed, I stood up again and continued walking. And soon, I found myself back on the familiar street, the street with the grandmother's shop. The little Christmas tree outside was glowing softly again. Warm, gentle lights twinkled around it. This time, I walked closer to the shop window. Inside, I saw the grandmother and the little girl working together. They were painting small ornaments, talking softly, and smiling at each other. Their moment looked warm, loving, and full of Christmas spirit. I didn't want to disturb them, so I didn't go inside. Instead, I just watched from the outside for a moment. After a few seconds, the little girl looked up and saw me. She smiled brightly and waved. I waved back. She opened the door and said, "Do you want to come in?" But I shook my head gently. "Maybe another time," I said softly. "I just wanted to see the lights." She nodded, then said something surprising. "Christmas lights are not just electricity. They are memories. They help people remember what's important." Her words were simple, but they felt deep. Children sometimes see the world more clearly than adults. She smiled again and went back inside, and I slowly walked home, thinking about everything I saw today. The old man reading by the window, the bakery's kindness, the children skating, the lights in the small shop. All these moments shared one message. Christmas is not loud. Christmas is gentle. Christmas is a warm light in the window that tells you the world still has hope. And I felt ready for the next chapter, the next moment, the next piece of Christmas magic waiting for me. The city had gone quiet. Streetlights shimmered on wet pavement, and the distant hum of traffic faded into the background like a tired lullaby. Maya sat at her small wooden desk, the glow of her laptop illuminating her face. Her cup of tea had already gone cold, but she hadn't noticed. She kept replaying the scene from the cafe. Not the coffee. Not the customer. Not even the manager's reaction. It was the moment she froze. Why couldn't I speak? She whispered to herself. Her phone buzzed. A message from her best friend, Samir. Still awake? Everything okay? Maya hesitated. She wanted to say she was fine. She wanted to say it was nothing. But the truth pressed heavily on her chest. She typed slowly. I got scared today. I couldn't explain something simple in English. Everyone was looking, and I felt small. She stared at the message and almost deleted it, but then she hit send. A moment later, another bubble appeared. Maya, confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's speaking even when fear is standing beside you. She read the message twice. Samir continued typing. You're learning a skill. It takes time. Nobody becomes confident overnight. Every mistake is pushing you forward, not pulling you back. Maya felt a gentle warmth wrap around her heart, not comfort exactly, but something that felt like possibility. She looked out the window and saw her reflection faintly, a girl who wasn't weak, just growing. For the first time that day, she inhaled deeply and slowly, as if telling her body, it's okay. You're learning. Then another message appeared. Tomorrow, give yourself one more chance. Just one. That's all you need. Maya closed her laptop. She wasn't magically confident. She wasn't suddenly fearless. But she felt something new waking up inside her. A quiet determination. She whispered to herself before going to bed. One more chance. Morning sunlight spilled through Maya's curtains like warm honey. The world felt new, and so did she, not because her fear had disappeared, but because she had decided to face it. She stood in front of her mirror, brushing her hair slowly, practicing the words she wanted to say today. Not perfect sentences. Not advanced vocabulary. Just simple, confident English. She whispered. Excuse me, could you help me with this? I'm not sure I said that correctly. Let me try again. The phrases felt strange at first, like shoes slightly too big, but with every repetition, they began to fit. On her way to work, the air was crisp, filled with the sound of rickshaw bells and morning chatter. People moved with purpose. The city was awake, alive, hopeful. And so was she. When she reached the office, she paused at the door. Her heart thumped. Her palms felt warm. Her brain started whispering old doubts. What if you mess up? What if they judge you? What if you freeze again? She closed her eyes and remembered Samir's words. Confidence is speaking even when fear is standing beside you. She inhaled deeply. She exhaled slowly. And she walked inside. At her desk, a coworker named Elena waved. Maya, morning. Can you help me check this file? I'm not sure if the details are correct. In the past, Maya would have panicked, or avoided, or smiled and pretended. But today, she chose courage over comfort. She stepped forward and said, gently but clearly, Sure, Elena. Let's look at it together. Her voice didn't shake. Her words didn't break. Her English wasn't perfect, but it was enough. As they worked, Maya made a small mistake in explanation. She corrected herself. Elena nodded, smiled, and continued. No judgment. No surprise. No problem. It was normal. A warm realization settled in Maya's heart. People don't expect perfection, only communication. For the first time in a long time, Maya felt something she had been searching for. Progress. Real, visible progress. She wasn't fluent yet. She wasn't fearless yet. But she had taken her first small step forward. And sometimes, one small step is all it takes to change the direction of an entire life. That evening, after a long day at work, Maya walked slowly toward the bus stop. The city lights glowed softly, and the winter air tasted cool and peaceful. Her mind replayed the day again and again, the moments when she spoke, the small mistakes, the courage she found, the tiny victories she almost missed. She smiled to herself. It was the first time she felt proud in a long time. While she waited for the bus, her phone vibrated. A message. From Elena. Maya opened it with curiosity. It said, "Hey Maya. A few of us are having a small Christmas gathering on Friday. Nothing fancy, just hot chocolate, music, and conversation. We would love if you could join us." Maya froze. A gathering. People. Talking. In English. Her mind instantly rushed into fear again. What if I don't understand? What if I say something wrong? What if I sit there quietly like a statue? But then something else appeared in her heart, a soft, warm feeling. She remembered Samir telling her, "English grows faster when you use it with people, not only with books." She remembered today's moment with Elena, simple, natural, real. She remembered how good it felt to speak. For a full minute, she stood there staring at the message. The bus arrived. People stepped on and stepped off. But Maya stayed still, holding her phone, holding her decision. Finally, with a deep breath, she typed, "Yes, I would love to come." Her finger hesitated above the send button. This little button felt heavier than a mountain. She closed her eyes and tapped send. Immediately her heart jumped in her chest. Her stomach felt tight. Her thoughts raced. But slowly, very slowly, her fear softened, like ice melting under warm light. Because deep inside, she knew something important. She didn't say yes to the party. She said yes to herself. That night, when she reached home, she sat on her bed and imagined the gathering. She imagined warm lights, soft Christmas songs, laughing coworkers, simple English conversations, and the smell of hot chocolate drifting through the air. She imagined herself smiling, speaking, asking questions, learning new words, and feeling a little braver with each minute. For the first time, she didn't imagine fear. She imagined possibility. Before sleeping, she whispered to herself, "I can do this, slowly, at my own pace, one moment at a time." And when she turned off the lights, the room didn't feel dark. Her heart felt bright enough. Because today she had spoken. Today she had moved forward. Today she had opened a new door. And behind that door, a new version of Maya was waiting. Friday arrived faster than Maya expected. All week, she tried to prepare herself. She practiced simple phrases at home. She listened to short English videos. She even stood in front of the mirror and practiced smiling while speaking, something she hadn't done in years. But still, when Friday evening came, her hands were shaking a little. She stood in front of her wardrobe, looking at her clothes. Nothing looked perfect, but she remembered something Samir always said. English confidence doesn't start with perfect clothes. It starts with a willing heart. So she chose a soft sweater, took a deep breath, and stepped outside. The winter evening felt different, calm, gentle, almost magical. Streets were decorated with tiny lights that looked like small stars. Shops had Christmas wreaths on their doors. Children ran around holding glowing toys. The air carried the sweet smell of cinnamon and warm bread. As Maya walked toward Elena's apartment, she felt like she was stepping into a new chapter of her life. Every light, every sound, every step made her feel alive. When she reached the building, she hesitated for a moment. She could hear soft Christmas music playing inside. People laughing. Voices mixing. Warmth floating through the closed door. Her heart started beating faster. She whispered to herself. It's okay. You're learning. You don't need to be perfect, just present. She knocked gently. The door opened almost immediately, and Elena's bright smile appeared. Maya, you came. I'm so happy. Maya smiled shyly. Her English felt stuck for a moment. She breathed in and said slowly, Thank you for inviting me. Her voice was soft, but it was clear. Elena stepped aside and welcomed her in. The apartment glowed with warm orange lights. A small Christmas tree stood near the window. Golden ornaments shimmered. Soft music played in the background, gentle, slow, comforting. A few coworkers were sitting on the sofa, laughing about something. When they noticed Maya, they waved happily. Hey, Maya. Merry Christmas. Maya felt her cheeks warm. She waved back. One coworker handed her a mug of hot chocolate. It smelled like cocoa and a little bit of magic. The mug was warm in her hands, like holding a tiny sun. She took a sip. Sweet, soft, comforting. Someone asked, So how was your week, Maya? Her mind froze, only for a second. Then she remembered her small practice sessions. Simple sentences. Clear words. She spoke slowly. My week was good. I learned some new things at work. And I tried to speak more English. They nodded, smiled, and encouraged her naturally. That's great. You're doing really well. We understand you perfectly. Those simple words melted away the little fear still hiding inside her chest. Maya listened to everyone talking. Their English was natural, easy, friendly. She didn't understand every word, and that was okay. She focused on the feeling, the rhythm, the connection. She watched how people used gestures, expressions, and simple phrases. She noticed how they laughed gently when someone made a small mistake, not in a mean way, but in a warm, human way. For the first time ever, Maya realized something powerful. English is not only a language. It's a way of being together. It's a bridge between people. It's a warm light, not a cold test. The Christmas lights glowed softly around her. She felt like she was part of the room, part of the moment, part of something bigger than her fear. And in that warm glow, she whispered to herself, Maybe I do belong here. The evening continued gently, like a soft song. People talked, laughed, shared stories, and passed around warm cookies from a small decorated plate. Maya sat near the Christmas tree, holding her mug of hot chocolate, watching the lights blink slowly red, gold, green, red again. They looked like tiny beating hearts. For a long time, she just listened. She listened to the words. She listened to the rhythm of English. She listened to the way people took turns speaking, joking, asking questions, and reacting with warm expressions. And every minute, she felt a little braver. Suddenly, Samir walked in holding a small bag of snacks. Maya, I didn't know you were coming. This is great. She smiled shyly. Hi, yes. I wanted to try. He nodded proudly, as if her simple sentence was a huge achievement, and to her, it was. He sat next to her and said softly, How do you feel? Maya thought for a moment. The answer wasn't simple. She felt scared, but happy. Quiet, but included. Nervous, but stronger. She looked at him and said slowly, I feel good. A little afraid, but it's okay. Samir smiled. That's the perfect place to be. Afraid and still trying. His words filled her chest with something warm, like courage slowly blooming. A few minutes later, Elena came over and joined them. She handed Maya a small cookie shaped like a star. Try this. I baked it myself. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. Maya took a small bite. It tasted like butter, sugar, and a little bit of childhood happiness. It's really nice, she said slowly. Elena clapped her hands playfully. Yes! Another win. Everyone laughed gently, and Maya laughed with them softly at first, then naturally freely. She felt the room's warmth wrap around her like a soft blanket. Then something surprising happened. A coworker named Daniel, who usually seemed quiet, sat down across from her. "I heard you're learning English," he said kindly. "How's the journey so far?" The question made her nervous. She didn't want to sound weak or embarrassed. But she remembered her new promise: speak honestly, speak simply. She took a breath. "I'm trying," she said. "Sometimes I understand. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm scared to speak." Daniel nodded slowly, listening with real attention. "That's normal," he said. "Honestly, when I was learning another language, I felt the same. I also made mistakes all the time." This surprised Maya. She always thought fluent speakers never struggled. She always thought they were born confident. "Really?" she asked. "Of course," he said with a soft smile. "We all start with confusion. We all start small." His words washed over her like rain on a hot day, refreshing, gentle, kind. He continued, "The bravest learners are not the best speakers. The bravest learners are the ones who keep speaking even when they feel afraid." Maya felt his words settle deep inside her. They touched something quiet and hidden, a little part of her that always believed she wasn't good enough. She whispered, "Sometimes I feel like everyone is better than me." Daniel shook his head. "No. Everyone is simply at a different point on the same road. You're on the road too. That's what matters." Maya felt her throat tighten with emotion. Not sadness, something softer, something almost like relief. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone in her struggle. She looked at the Christmas tree again, the lights, the soft music, the warm faces around her. Maybe this evening wasn't about English. Maybe it wasn't even about Christmas. Maybe it was about connection. A simple human connection that made learning easier, lighter, kinder. Maya took another breath, deep and steady. Then she did something brave. She turned to Daniel and asked a question. A real question. In English. With confidence. "What language did you learn? And how did you practice?" Daniel's face brightened. And at that moment, the conversation truly began. Something inside Maya opened. Her voice opened. Her confidence opened. Her heart opened. And for the first time, Maya felt herself stepping into the English world, not as a visitor, but as someone who finally belonged there. The evening moved gently, like snow falling without sound. People talked in small groups. The Christmas lights glowed softly around the room. Warm music floated in the background like a slow heartbeat. And Maya, she was no longer sitting quietly on the edge of the sofa. She was in the conversation. Not outside. Not hiding. Not afraid in the same way as before. She asked Daniel questions, and he answered with patience. She listened to Elena talk about her funny cat. She even shared a small story about her week, her first brave step at work. Everyone listened. Everyone smiled. Everyone understood her simple English. Nobody asked her to be perfect. Nobody corrected her sharply. Nobody made her feel small. Instead, they made her feel welcome. Later in the evening, when people were gently laughing about a silly Christmas memory, Maya stepped away from the group for a moment and walked toward the small balcony. The cold air touched her cheeks, but she liked it. It felt real, fresh, honest, just like this new version of herself. She looked out at the city. Buildings stood tall but gentle. Some windows glowed with yellow light. Some streets shimmered with holiday decorations. Everything felt peaceful, as if the whole world was breathing slowly. Maya wrapped her hands around her warm mug and whispered to herself. "I did it." Not loudly. Not proudly. Just softly, like a secret between her and the night. She remembered the beginning of the week, when she couldn't even say a simple sentence without fear, when she avoided conversations because she didn't want to make mistakes, when English felt like a heavy mountain she could never climb. But tonight, she had climbed the first part. She had spoken. She had joined. She had connected. Someone stepped onto the balcony behind her. It was Samir. He leaned against the railing and smiled. "You're doing great, Maya." She looked at him shyly. "Really? I still make mistakes. I still don't understand everything." Samir shook his head gently. "Mistakes are not the opposite of learning. They are learning. And look at you. This is the most confident I've ever seen you." Maya felt her heart warm at his words. She turned her eyes back toward the city and let a long, deep breath escape slowly. After a quiet moment, she said, "Tonight, I didn't feel like a student. I felt like I was part of something." Samir nodded. "That's the magic of real English. It's not about grammar. It's about people. It's about moments. It's about being brave enough to open your mouth and speak, even when your voice is small." Maya smiled. Her voice was small. But tonight, it was heard. They stepped back into the warm room. Someone had turned on soft Christmas music. People were dancing playfully, not seriously, just swaying and laughing and enjoying the moment. Elena waved at Maya. "Come here. Let's take a picture." Maya hesitated, then walked over. They took a photo together, smiling, relaxed, comfortable. It wasn't just a picture. It was a memory. A reminder. A reminder that she belonged. Later, when the gathering ended and people started saying goodbye, Maya felt something she had never felt after an English event. She did not feel exhausted. She did not feel embarrassed. She did not feel like she had failed. She felt full. Full of courage. Full of hope. Full of something new, something she couldn't describe, but she knew she wanted more of. As she stepped outside into the cool night air, she lifted her head and looked at the sky. She didn't know if there were stars or just city lights, but it didn't matter. Her heart felt brighter than anything above her. And the quiet realization settled deep inside her. This is the beginning of my new English life. She walked home slowly, smiling softly at the world. Every step felt light. Every breath felt free. Her journey had just begun, and for the first time ever, she was excited for the road ahead. The next morning, Maya woke up with a strange kind of excitement. Not loud or impatient. Just soft, quiet, happy energy. She sat on her bed and looked at the small notebook she had been keeping since the week began. Each page had simple notes, words she learned, small phrases she practiced, moments she remembered. And slowly, she realized something. The real gift of learning English wasn't only the words. It was the small moments, the smiles, the conversations, the courage, the warmth of people around her. She got dressed slowly, enjoying the calm morning light. As she walked through the street toward the small bakery, she noticed things she hadn't seen before. A child helping their mother carry groceries. A stray dog curled up under a shop's warm light. An old man sitting on a bench, feeding birds like he did every day. She smiled. Every small act of kindness felt connected to the warmth she experienced last night. Every small moment seemed like a piece of Christmas magic. When she reached the bakery, the young woman behind the counter greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, Maya. How are you today?" Maya smiled back. "Good, and I feel happy," she said slowly. Her English wasn't perfect, but her meaning was clear. The woman nodded. "I can see that. You look brighter today." Maya laughed softly. "Yes, brighter," she said. It was true. She felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted from her chest. She bought a warm roll and stepped outside. The snow had stopped overnight, leaving a sparkling white carpet on the streets. The air smelled fresh, clean, like hope itself. She walked slowly, enjoying the moment. As she turned a corner, she noticed the little girl from the Christmas shop standing by a small decorated tree outside. The girl waved. Maya waved back. "Did you enjoy the gathering last night?" the girl asked. "Yes, very much," Maya replied. "I learned English and courage." The girl smiled knowingly. "Good," she said softly. "Christmas is about finding courage in small moments." Maya nodded. She realized the truth in the girl's words. Courage didn't always roar. Sometimes it whispered softly, "Try again. Speak again. Take a small step." She continued walking and thought about the last few days, the snowy streets, the warm bakery, the old man with the birds, the little boy and his sled, the coworkers' Christmas gathering. All these moments had something in common. They were small, but they mattered. And suddenly, she understood the secret of fluency, the secret of learning, the secret of life itself. It's the small moments, the ones you notice, the ones you practice, the ones you cherish, that change everything. Maya took out her notebook and wrote slowly. "Today, I will notice the small moments. I will speak. I will listen. I will connect. I will let my courage grow." She closed the notebook, feeling warmth spread from her chest to her fingertips. The city around her felt alive, full of stories, full of people, full of chances. She looked at the sky. The sun was soft, warm, golden. A quiet promise seemed to shine in its light. Every day can be a small Christmas if you notice it. Maya walked home slowly, smiling softly, breathing deeply, and feeling something she had never felt before. That learning, growing, and living can be gentle, beautiful, and full of hope. And in that moment, she knew her journey had only just begun, and she was ready for every small step ahead. The next morning felt calm and quiet, like the world had paused for just a moment. Maya woke up slowly and stretched her arms, feeling the warmth of her small apartment. Everything outside the window looked peaceful, the rooftops dusted with snow, the soft sunlight reflecting on the frozen streets, and the faint sparkle of the Christmas decorations still twinkling in the distance. She sat at her desk and opened her notebook. She read the words she had written over the past days, small victories, new phrases, acts of kindness, tiny moments of courage. A soft smile appeared on her face. Maya realized something important. Her English journey wasn't about speaking perfectly or avoiding mistakes. It was about living, noticing, and connecting. It was about opening her heart and letting small moments guide her. It was about embracing fear and still taking a step forward. She remembered her first day, the fear, the hesitation, the silence. And she remembered last night, the gathering, the warmth, the smiles, the conversation. And now, today, she understood that every moment between then and now had been part of a quiet, gentle transformation. She walked to the small window and looked outside. The city was waking up. People moved through their routines, children laughed, street vendors sold bread and toys, birds hopped along the sidewalks. Everything was ordinary, yet somehow everything felt extraordinary. Maya took out the small wooden heart the little girl had given her. She held it in her hand, feeling its warmth. It reminded her of kindness, of courage, of small but meaningful connections. And she realized that this heart, this small symbol, was a reminder that every journey begins with a single step. She whispered softly to herself, "I am ready for everything I will learn, for every person I will meet, for every small moment I will notice." And she opened her notebook to a blank page. She wrote slowly, carefully, and fully. "My English journey is my journey. Every step counts. Every word counts. Every connection counts. I will keep going. I will keep learning. I will keep speaking. I will keep noticing. I will keep growing. Maya closed the notebook and held it close to her chest. She felt a gentle strength rising from inside her. It wasn't loud. It wasn't sudden. It was quiet, steady, and real. It was confidence, born from small steps, small moments, and small courage. She looked out at the city one last time before leaving the apartment. The snow had melted slightly, leaving tiny sparkling puddles. The streets were alive with life, and she felt herself alive with possibility. As she walked toward her day, ready to speak, to listen, to connect, to grow, she smiled softly. This was not the end. It was not the perfect ending. It was the beginning of a lifelong journey. A journey of words, courage, kindness, and discovery. A journey where every day could be Christmas, if only she noticed. A journey where she would keep learning, keep speaking, and keep shining, just like the warm lights in the city windows, just like the gentle glow of the wooden heart, just like the tiny, meaningful steps she had taken to reach this moment. And with that, Maya stepped outside, into the crisp, beautiful morning, ready to embrace the world. Ready to speak. Ready to connect. Ready to grow. Her story had begun. And her journey, the real, wonderful journey of life and language, had only just started.